Hello there, you're back with another one of Arbiter's Garrysmod tutorials. Today's tutorial is something I've been meaning to do for a long time and I haven't actually been requested to do. I'm actually making one up myself. We're going to be covering something that's not really all that practical. It's more something to further your own knowledge. So if you want to learn how to build some crazy stuff, this probably is a miss for you. But if you're hoping to further your own knowledge of wire, then stick around. Right, what we're essentially going to be doing is we're going to be covering the different types of wire inputs. Now, for the moment, in most of our tutorials, we've just been covering normal number systems. If I just demonstrate this here, I'm just going to open a constant value, and I'm going to show you. If I just set this as a regular number, I'm just going to set this as, let's say, 20. And then if I just spawn this constant value, I can wire this up to the screen, and it just outputs 20. And that's a regular number system. We've been using this for like ones and zeros for inputs and outputs. Everything has been based on numbers, but wire is not limited to numbers. If you were to look at a constant value and have a look at this where it says type, besides number we have things like angle, string, 3D vectors, 2D vectors, 4D vectors, and these are all different types of information that you can actually feed into wire systems. They're not compatible completely. Like if I was to spawn a string and let's say type Arbiter and then try and display it on this screen, because this screen is developed for numbers, I get an error there that says data type mismatch. So obviously we can't do that. So I'm going to be demonstrating the different types of the different types that we can have. So the first one we're going to look at is probably the easiest. It is string. And string, if you've ever done any kind of programming or coding, you will know that a string is basically the alphabet. It is alphanumeric, so we have numbers, letters, symbols. Pretty much anything on your keyboard can be represented in a string. The only reason they don't do this in number systems is because it takes up more bits to form. So as I've just done there, I have spawned a constant value that says Arbiter. If I just spawn that there, and then I can spawn a text screen, and this text screen, despite it says flight controls at the minute, I can just set up there, and if we look at it, the input says string, and in brackets it says string. Now usually when something's in brackets in capitals like that, it's saying what the input type is supposed to be. Like there, if we go scroll along, it says vector, and those are for colours. So if I just wire this up here, you can see there that it says Arbiter on the screen, which is wonderful. Now, besides this, it's not just, oh, I can spawn a constant value of strings. Oh, have I crashed? Nope. It's not like, oh, I can spawn a constant value of strings. There's actually a gate selection for strings, and these do things to the value, like find the length of it, so find the length of the word, repeat it, turn it all lowercase. So if I just demonstrate the lowercase one there, I just stick that in the middle, although I put a capital A on Arbiter, as you can see on the screen there. If we set the string to this, and then the string of this gate to there, it all comes out lowercase. Now I'm sure there'll be an uppercase gate as well, you can reverse it, but the main thing of the string gate is just the string, as that you can just, it's just a different type of information input. You can also use the select. I think in the 15th tutorial for base wars I did use this as a kind of method of some kind of riddle to get into a base, but you don't really need to know all that. Okay, moving on, we're going to look at angles. Anyway, the angle gate. Now, you might be thinking already, why would you need an angle gate? Because we could just spawn a regular number and say angle is like 90 degrees. Not Q90, like 90 degrees, and then you could use that as an angle. But it's not an angle in that sense, it's not an angle between 2 points. In this case, it is an angle relative to the world. Now, if you're not sure what I mean, I'm going to show you with this tool that I don't think I've used before. It is the gyroscope. And what the gyroscope does is it outputs the angle that it is on the world. Now, if we just spawn there, it's saying 0, 0, 0, and that's because it is flat on the ground. If I were to pick it up and rotate it a bit, you can see there, the angles are set to 0, 45, 270, and if just loosely rotate it, you just see there's all crazy angles popping up. Now that is because it is the angles relative to each axis. So that's X, Y and Z. Now, obviously, they don't call them X, Y and Z angles. They call them pitch, yaw and roll. Now, if I were to just spawn 3 screens here, you can see that, just little ones like that, the gyroscope has 3 outputs of pitch, yaw and roll. So if we just press A and click on it, you can see the output there, pitch, there is yaw, and there is roll. And that's roll. You can see that the board isn't exactly flat because it's got decimal places, so that's not exactly a flat surface. But, you know, it's not really relevant because we're within, you know, 1-2 degrees. So, this is 3 separate angles on each axis of the direction and location and horizontal whatever of that gyroscope. So what we can do is we can get rid of that and we can consolidate it all into an angle expression. Now what the angle does is it just takes all 3 pitch, yaw and roll and converts it into one sort of packet, if you like, you could say. That it transmits all the data in one burst instead of in 3 separate parts. Now, I'm just going to compose this up. So pitch, you can see it's got pitch, yaw and roll inputs. So we're just going to go for pitch first. Output pitch, yaw, output yaw, and roll is output roll. If you look at the gate there, it says angle, and then it's got in brackets all the things that are inputted, and then equals, and then it's got the outputs of the angle. Now, there's not much I know how to do with this. If you're going to go into something crazy like plane building or something, this would probably be a really useful tool, because it's about keeping level and knowing which angles are at which direction. But as I'm saying, I'm just going through what each variable type is supposed to do and not exactly how you can use it. As I've said, I'm not doing anything practical. But that aside, so if you want to make this into a constant value, you'd set the variable type as angle, and all you do is it's 3 numbers that are between, I would suppose, 180, I'm not sure. If I try 360 as a maximum, and then you just separate those as a comma. So that is the angle variable type. What we're going to go into next is the entity variable type. Now this is a bit of a strange one. The entity variable type is relative to the game. If that's a Stargate there, and that is an entity. If we were to go into the entities tab, these are all entities. An entity is something within the game, but it can also be players or NPCs or even props. An entity is anything within the game that is like like that's been spawned. Really, it's not like if you everything excluding the map itself. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to spawn a target finder, because target finders output. I have a special output if I just spawn anything there and just show you the outputs. If you scroll through them, it just says output 1, and that's normal, but if you right click, it's got an output and it's an entity type. I don't know why I keep using my hands when I'm doing tutorials. You can't see me. Excuse me. So yes, so the entity type, and crap. Right. So what we can use with this is in the gate entity selection is we can just basically just use it for information finding. We could, in this section here where it's got is in vehicle, is NPC, and that'll output a value for true or false if the entity it's selected is a certain thing. So is player, so it's asking, am I a player? Is the entity that we're looking at a player? Obviously I am. So when we wire this up, it's got an output of 1 because I am a player. But if we were to say entity is in vehicle, I'm obviously not in a vehicle, I'm just standing doing my thing. So obviously it's outputting a 0 because I'm not in a vehicle. So this can be good for finding targets and things and outputting information on players. You can even do really sneaky stuff like output their mass or their Steam ID, how fast they're travelling or where they're standing. So this kind of can work as a beacon sensor in a way, but it just uses different. It comes with a lot more information gathering. You can see if they're underwater, or if they are a vehicle. Christ. Or where their centre of mass is. I mean, it's got some really strange stuff here. You can even output what player model they are. So if I just wire this up again, we obviously see that I am a Mossman model, which, yeah, I am. I'm Mossman. I am Mossman. So that's the entity variable type. Moving on, we're going to use the, we'll have a look. Yep, the vector variable type. Now, if you're a math student, you probably know what a vector is already. Oh, actually, that's a lie. I'm a math student and I don't understand it. But that's why I failed maths. As I said, most gates you have a compose and a decompose element, and they're just to make up the gates. Now, the best way I can describe a vector is that it's 3 numbers. It's 3 numbers in an X, Y, Z sort of way. In fact, yeah, that is what it is. A vector is supposed to be a direction, but it's a direction that illustrates which direction it's going in each axis. So you get a 3D shape, which is why in constant values you get different ones. You get 3D, 2D, and 4D vectors. Now 4D, how the hell? I mean, it's supposed to be a direction, and I'm fairly sure that our universe only has 3 dimensions as of now that we've discovered. So I'm going to ignore that for the moment as a physical phenomenon right now, and I'm just going to stick with 3D vectors. So, same as angles, you can stick them in just 3 numbers side by side with separated by commas, and I'm just going to set this as 255 0, oops, sorry, comma 0, and then 255 again. Now, I'm just going to spawn that there. And the best way I can do this is with a light. Now, a light has 3 inputs. It has red, green and blue, but it also has RGB vector. Now, RGB vector is just so you can wire this up, and it takes in the 3 numbers, and it's outputting purple there, because we've got full red and full blue, I think it is, and no green. So, obviously, if we were to change this, and put, say, that is 25500, it should all be red, and it is. So that's just consolidating 3 numbers into 1. Now what I'm going to do briefly, now that all those 4 are done, is just show you what kind of things that we can do just to demonstrate this further. Now I'm going to get a constant value GPS. Oh, it's nano sized again. I'm going to do this really quickly, so I'm not sure how much time I've got left going. I can see there it's 1039, so I'm going to write this into 1039 minus 240 minus 240, and then 57. Let's make it 60. Right, so there we've got 3 coordinates, and those are XYZ coordinates, but they're all consolidated into one bit of information. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to run right over here, and I'm going to spawn a hover drive controller. And I'm going to show you that normally with hover drive controllers we have to feed in X, Y and Z coordinates individually. But what we can do, which I'm going to do in the next tutorial, which you're going to see a kind of practical implication of this, I'm just going to stick this on here with a button, usually. And yep, it's just a regular button there. I'm just going to say that instead of X jump target, Y jump target and Z jump target, we're just going to say set jump target vector. I'm going to wire that right there. And all I'm going to do is say jump on the button, and all I have to do is press the button, and it's jumped to the coordinates of that constant value. Now, as I've said, there is a gate section for vector, and these have loads of different functions for the vector input, and they can multiply. I'm not really sure on vectors, as I said, I failed math, so I don't know what most of these do. You can still use selection though, which is useful, which I'm going to go into the next tutorial. You can convert it to a string, which I don't understand either. But if you know about most of these variable types and you wish to use them, like the string and the entity ones, particularly useful. Not so much the vector and the gyrate, the angle one. But they're all useful, and they are semi-compatible, and it sort of opens up a whole new way of working with wire that helps to further your own understanding, knowledge, and build new stuff, and be creative, which is what this game's all about. So I hope you found this tutorial informative and enjoyable, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.